Hey guys, Lizer here. Some of you might be wondering why this is a bit of a different intro compared to most of our other episodes, and the short answer for that is we had some technical difficulties. You see, every time we record an episode of the podcast, Jay, Celeste, and I all get together, we do sound tests and all that good stuff first to make sure everything's working fine. And 90% of the time, it works, but sometimes it just doesn't work out, and things get screwed up even after we've checked everything. Case in point, with this episode we did. We checked the audio, but after the recording was done and over with, and we were all just happy it was done and relaxing, I realized that my audio wasn't recorded for whatever reason, even though it was in the test. I explained what happened to them. They offered to redo it at a later time because, we're adults, we're all busy. But I didn't want to have them put themselves out or drop what they were doing. So I'm just going to give a quick summary of the show that we watched and a short run through of some of the things that happened and, that we spoke about in the podcast this week. So let me pull up the, that is my recording software. Streamlabs, yeah, gotta love it. Anyway, for starters, this week's episode was about the anime To Your Eternity, which is about an immortal being that is placed into a world of mortals and has to learn how to live amongst them. He starts out as a rock, absorbs the essence of a dying wolf and transforms into it, meets and befriends a young man. This is them here. The young boy is never given a name, but he meets and befriends him, and through some happenstance and some unfortunate circumstances, the young man passes away. But the immortal being absorbs his essence and is able to copy him and assumes his form for pretty much the rest of the show, as far as we've seen and as far as is available. Sometime later, he meets a young girl named Marchie, who I actually didn't have a picture of when we did the actual stream, but I have one now. So this is her. She's pretty fucking adorable, I'm not gonna lie. And she lives in this village. Side point, this all takes place like in what seems to be the past, like a very, very long time ago. It's like indigenous people. So she's in a village, and long story short, for her character, she's a young girl and she wants to be an adult. She wants to be a mother. She has these toys that she plays with and she pretends to be their mother, and that's her dream in life. Sadly, she's chosen to be a sacrifice to protect her village. And she has this other character here. Boom. Her name is Perona, and she acts as an older sister to Marchie. And she's trying to save Marchie from her unsavourable fate. And through some pomp and circumstance, they end up meeting the immortal being, who Marchie names Fushi. She teaches him how to eat. He's unable to communicate. He's very, I wouldn't say feral, but he's not fully realized as a human being. He cannot speak. He cannot do menial tasks. I think at one point he pees on himself because he doesn't know how to use the bathroom correctly. So she takes him in as like a mother figure. Eventually, the people who were trying to sacrifice Marchie catch them all. There's this giant bear monster that they have a fight with, which is actually the monster that they were trying to sacrifice her to. He was seen as like the lord of the land, like a god or something among the people. And when Fushi defeats him, they're like, oh, this is a message from the gods. We no longer have to do this. Come to our village. And the person saying this is this woman here, whose name is Hayase. And they go to her village, and they're all amazed by, you know, how much more advanced it is. They have like stalls set up. It's much larger. It almost looks like an early like city by our standards. Not quite, but you know, it's getting there. You can see it forming. And Hayase treats them all to food. Says you can get whatever you want. They pick up like toys and hats and stuff. And then she basically roofies them and throws them in prison. And they're separated into different cells. They do test on Fushi because he's immortal. They have people like going in and stabbing him and seeing the wounds healing and, you know, basically trying to test his ability. Perona is coming up with an escape plan, and she's successful. She gathers, you know, everyone together. They make their grand escape. Sadly, Marchi is killed. She takes an arrow for Perona during their escape, and in a very, very sad scene, she passes on. And we get to see Perona grieve. Fushi is attacking the city. He takes the form of the giant bear that I mentioned before. He's attacking. He doesn't kill Hayase, but he pretty much mangles her. And Perona is holding Marchi's corpse, goes up to Hayase, and you think she's going to kill her, end it all, but instead she turns the blade on herself, and then we see Marchi's spirit trying to stop her. And I'm assuming that Fushi can see the spirit or can sense it in some way, shape, or form, and he actually stops Perona. And they go back to their home village. The group of people with Hayase are still chasing them, so Perona tells Fushi he needs to leave, in which he makes his leave, and we actually see him transform into Marchi. And that basically covers the 5 episodes that we had to talk about, that we had to watch. This character here also, PRN. She was in the jail with them in the 5 episodes. She's not really given any character building. She's just there. She's just an old woman who's in the jail. We don't really learn anything about her. This is where Celeste took a break and finished talking about what the show was about. And we mentioned things about like spoilers, as far as, because me personally, I've gotten messages from friends saying that we shouldn't do spoilers, but they were talking in reference to the 5 episodes we're supposed to be watching, which doesn't make any sense. But anyway, this is gonna have spoilers in it. We talked about characters such as Gugu, who is introduced in episode 6, and he's a poor boy working in a town that Fushi ends up in. In fact, PRN takes him to the town because her like lover is there or whatever, which is fucking gross. She's old. And he was just a poor boy with his brother. They lived in a tent outside. Oh, excuse me. They lived in a tent outside. The brother abandons him. He falls in love with this noble girl, but he can't tell her because he's shy and, you know, he's poor, she's rich. But he ends up saving her from like this rogue. I wouldn't call it a tree branch, just like an entire tree, basically. Like a giant tree log was rolling down a hill towards her. He pushed her out of the way. It ends up falling on his face, and that's why he's wearing this mask that you see. But then we started talking about, you know, our thoughts on everything. Obviously, Celeste really liked the show. She chose it, so it wouldn't make sense if she didn't like it. Jay really enjoyed it. He was not prepared for the emotional toll of seeing Marchi die. I also really enjoyed it. I brought up, if anyone listening to this knows of this old anime called Ninja Scroll, there was the main character Jubei. There's an episode where he has to take a boat trip to get to his destination, and he's hurt. And on this boat is a little girl, and she comes up to him, and she says, like, "Owie, owie, go away," and, like, a little kid, she's pretending to use magic to heal him. These murders start happening on the boat, and they're trying to figure out what's happening. There's, like, this witch lady, and Jubei faces off with her, ends up killing her, but what they don't know is that she's actually possessing the body of the little girl. And the little girl had no idea that she was doing this. Everyone was pretty much completely unaware. And her final words are actually just, as she's bleeding out in Jubei's arms, a very tearful, "Owie, owie, go away." And those are her last words. And I remember being a kid, which I should not have been watching that show as a kid, because it's very not safe for work. But I remember just bawling my eyes out back then. And that's the feeling I got when Marchie died in this show. And she even does something similar, like the bear thing is captured with them in the jail, and it's wounded, and she keeps rubbing it and saying that it's gonna be okay. And that's why I remembered that little girl in that show. But we all gave the show very high ratings. Celeste gave it a 10 out of 10. Jay gave it, I believe, like an 8 or a 9. And I gave it like an 8.5. And we spoke about some spoiler things that happen in the manga that are not within the 8 episodes available in the show as of recording this. We talked about how Fushi is going to be super overpowered at some point. We talked about some abilities he's going to be getting, some characters that are going to be appearing, dying, so on and so forth. Very, very spoiler heavy, which I feel like I can't hold that conversation right now because, one, it's just me, and two, I didn't know all the details. It was me and Celeste saying this to Jay. But we all recommended that even if you don't want to watch the show itself, pick up the manga. It is such an interesting read. I had mentioned that from episode 1, I was entranced with the story, like just the general idea of, whatever god or whatever it is sending this immortal being to the world. It has no, like back when it was a rock, it had no sense of self or anything. It was just a rock. It had no mind. And then it becomes the wolf, and then it becomes a human, and it just keeps growing. And how every time Fushi meets someone and adapts to life, we get to see him become more human, yet at the same time more inhuman, because his powers are developing. He's getting stronger. So his mind is becoming more human, but his bodies and power are becoming less. And we spoke about how in the manga there's going to be a time jump. They're going to go from like this feudal era where everyone is like, no shirts, no shoes, no service, to current day, like present 2021 version of the world. And how Fushi, he keeps his forms, but he can age if he stays in certain forms for a certain period of time. But whenever he transfers out of them, he reverts back to the age when he first took the form. Just various little details here and there. Just showing how interesting that this can actually get. But at the end of it, we all agreed, this was a home run for Celeste. She did a really good job picking this week's show. We all really enjoyed it, even though me and Jay were kind of hesitant at first, because we didn't want it to be overly emotional. We didn't want it to be boring. We wanted something really good, and I feel like we were both happy with what happened. Jay himself, he's going to wait until more episodes are available. That way he doesn't have to wait every week. He'd rather just wait a long period of time so he can knock it all out. Me, I'm probably going to keep watching it episode by episode, but I'm probably also going to pick up the manga just so I can speed ahead and see things, because even though I know about certain things that happen in the end game or wherever the manga currently is, because it is still ongoing, I don't know exactly how it gets to that point, and I'm super interested in finding out. So that's my seal of approval on that. But then at the end of it, as we were all getting ready to say goodbye, we decided now's the time to tell everyone what the anime is for next week, or the show rather, because we don't just do animes, but it is an anime. And it was my turn to pick, and I picked the English dub of Ghost Stories, which is actually something I promised a long time ago that we would do. This was actually the basis for me and Celeste starting this podcast. Just on one of my streams, we joked about making up an anime podcast or an animation podcast and watching this and just making fun of it. And we all have at least some history with this. I've never seen the full series. I don't think Jay or Celeste have either, but we know a lot. I've watched a lot of episodes, and I don't know if they've seen full-on episodes or just clips here and there of funny moments. But this is basically going to be the shitposting episode. It's going to be the meme episode. Because Ghost Stories English dub is not taken seriously at all. It is a dub nobody really wanted to do, of a show nobody really wanted, and the voice actors literally were given the freedom to go in the voice booth, get drunk or whatever, and just do whatever they want. And it is, by all of today's standards, not a good show, but it's very funny. It would not pass today. It would definitely be, for lack of a better word, canceled. But it's still funny and has like dark humor. There's, if you're not into it, I'm sorry, but there's like racist humor. There's sexist humor, humor about religion. Like they all the worst things you could do, they probably did, within limit. But I'm actually very excited to finally do this one. This is something we promised from the very beginning. So we're looking forward to that. But that about sums it up. Sorry that this wasn't the full-on, jam-packed episode with everyone in it that you guys are used to. Technical difficulties, man. You gotta love them. But hopefully we'll be in top form next week. I'm gonna do like 2 or 3 extra tests to be sure. I'm gonna check all my settings before anything. And hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys will be there live. Remember, you can come to twitch.tv/battleizer23, BATTLIZER23, or YouTube under the same name, because I dual stream. And you can watch us live, and you'll get all the memes, all the visual representation. And then afterwards, the VOD is left on YouTube, and then we upload it to the audio-only sites. So audio-only listeners, we love you, but you're kind of missing out. Honestly, especially for next week, because I think there's going to be some funny stuff to see. Hopefully I'll see you guys there. Have a good one.